Every night, I ponder the choices of my life, the cruel paradox of existence. Wage slavery isn't just work, it's a life lived in shadows, an illusion of choice, wrapped in the chains of necessity. But when the truth flickers into view, I see it clearly. The choices were made long ago, not by me, but for me. Hi, I hope you're doing okay today. My name is Tom, and I wrote a book called The Brutal Truth About Work. And I wanted to share a little bit about it with you, not as a pitch, but more like a conversation between us, quiet and honest, and maybe a little bit vulnerable. Because this book wasn't written out of ambition. It was written out of necessity. You see, for most of my adult life, I've been working. Like so many people, I followed the path that I was told would lead to stability and freedom. And I became a consultant, which meant that I was working for a lot of companies across very different industries. And over time, I started to notice these patterns, not just occasional issues, but deep systemic problems with how we work and how we live. Now, at first, I thought that maybe that was just me, that I was too sensitive or not resilient enough. But the longer I stayed, the more I saw people getting burnt out and people disappearing after layoffs without a word, and people just giving everything to a company only to be discarded when they were no longer convenient. And worst of all, nobody seemed surprised about this. We often talk about these things, but not really. And when we do, it often feels like whispering in the shadows, afraid to say what we truly feel. And this is why I start to make these videos, to speak about the truth as I saw it. And that's basically how this book was born, because to be honest, I don't think we have enough books about this topic. I don't think we have enough YouTube videos. I don't think we have enough politicians talking about this problem. So, the core idea of this book is something called wage slavery. Now, it's a strong term, and it's meant to. It describes a condition where a person's life is controlled by their job, where they rely on wages not just for comfort or progress, but for survival, rent, food, insurance, a sense of worth, all tied to employment. Now, historically, this idea is not new. The phrase wage slavery was used by 19th century labor movements, especially in the US and Europe, to describe industrial workers who had no choice but to accept grueling conditions or risk starvation. And in some ways, it was a critique of capitalism itself, the idea that people were free, but in reality had no meaningful freedom when their existence depended entirely on selling their labor. Philosopher Noam Chomsky once said, "The term wage slavery comes from early industrial workers who saw themselves as not very different from slaves, except that they had the freedom to starve if they didn't want to work." And that's the heart of this book. What kind of freedom is that anyway? In the modern world, wage slavery often hides behind polished surfaces, HR initiatives, corporate values, team-building exercises. But underneath, there is something unsettling, a quiet kind of violence. The way we spend most of our waking hours working, the way our identities become attached to our job titles, the way we are praised for being busy, for sacrificing weekends, for burning out quietly. Now, I've seen this firsthand. I've worked inside so many different companies. That's the one thing about being a consultant. You never stay in one place too long. You move between organizations, and you begin to notice how similar they all are. You realize that the problems, they aren't just in the culture of this company or that company, they're structural. Now, what makes this book kind of unique is that it comes from lived experience. I'm not a full-time writer. I'm just someone who's sat in countless office meetings, receiving corporate emails full of buzzwords, and watched coworkers cry in parking lots. And I felt the slow erosion of purpose that so many of us carry but rarely name. I've seen the loyalty demanded of employees while companies prepare layoffs in silence. I've watched people disappear from Slack channels and email lists like ghosts. And what scares me is how normal all of this has become. We pretend we're fine, but we're not. When I began sharing these stories online on my YouTube channel, I was overwhelmed by the response. So many people wrote to me, strangers telling me things that they had never told anyone. And that's when I knew I wasn't alone. We are not alone. So this book, it's a collection of those thoughts, those realizations. It's not a memoir, not quite a manifesto. It's more like a mirror. It takes the best parts of my YouTube videos and reshapes them into chapters. More focused, more meditative. And yes, I did use ChatGPT to help me structure the writing, especially since English isn't my first language. And I don't think that this diminishes the work. In fact, I think it kind of honors it, because ideas matter more than perfection, and honesty matters more than polish. I'm not here to sell you a dream of passive income or quitting your job overnight. That would be just another illusion. What I am saying is there is something deeply broken about how we work today. And if you feel that, this book is for you. Who is this book for, really? It's for the person who dreads Monday, for the one who gave their all to a company and got nothing in return, for the one sitting in traffic right now, wondering if this is all there is. It's for people who feel like their time is being stolen, their creativity drained, their lives compressed into spreadsheets and productivity apps. In the brutal truth about work, I tried to peel back the layers, to look at why the 8-hour workday was created in the first place. Hint, it wasn't for your well-being. And then the myth of success that's been engineered to keep us chasing things that don't matter, to examine how language of team spirit and hustle culture often masks exploitation. This book asks questions more than it gives answers. Questions like, what if success isn't what we're told it is? What if we've been trained to confuse work with purpose? What if freedom isn't a reward we earn, but the rights that we've forgotten? One of the quotes that sort of shaped my thinking comes from Bertrand Russell. A great deal of harm is being done in the modern world by the belief of the virtuousness of work. That's not to say work has no value, but work without meaning, work without choice, that's something else entirely. And when I think of the people I met through my videos, people quietly rebuilding their lives, starting small projects, reclaiming their time, I feel hopeful. Because change doesn't always start with revolution. Sometimes it starts with awareness. If you've ever felt like you're living someone else's life, if you've ever wondered why you feel so tired after doing everything the right way, this book might help you make sense of that feeling. It's not a blueprint, but maybe it can be a spark. Not to escape work entirely, but to escape the lie that your worth is tied to your output. To remember that your life belongs to you, not your boss, not to some brand, and certainly not to a paycheck. Thank you for listening.